Hey everybody, welcome to the SaaS Founder Show. This is Tony Zayas, your co-host, joined by Andy Halko, your co-host, and today also your featured guest. So Andy, welcome.
Well, thanks, Tony. I appreciate it. I feel like I've been on the show before.
Yeah, deja vu, right?
Totally.
So today I'm excited to talk about Breakthrough. So Andy is the founder of a new product that we're actually putting out into the marketplace called Breakthrough that helps you work on spending time focusing on the business as opposed to working in the business. So Andy, you want to give just a little recap, just overview of what Breakthrough is all about?
Yeah, I mean, really, at the end of the day, we'll probably talk about this, but I've had this company for 20 years almost now. And one of the most important things to me over the years has been, working on the business and trying to think strategically about it. And for me, it was really about developing this methodology of, how do I define the elements that are important? Things like our core values, so I can get the right people on the bus, mission and vision. What are our goals for the organization? What are the personas that we're targeting for marketing and sales? All of these different key elements that were important to my business. And then utilizing that with clients and saying, we've got to define this right for you. But then the biggest piece was, how do I communicate and collaborate with my team around all these? It's fantastic to sit in an office or a conference room with a leadership team, and we would create presentations, but it was so flat, and the experience of sharing this strategic plan with the team and evangelizing it and getting collaboration from it, it was such a challenge. And so we have over the years built this platform Breakthrough that streamlines and simplifies and brings the digital nature of collaboration to strategic planning. And so this tool is something that not only is born from the need and pains and approaches that I've had over the years as an owner, but also the ones that I've then helped hundreds of businesses solve for themselves over the years. And so really it's the culmination of bringing all that together into something that we can really, in my mind, help democratize strategic planning, make it simple and accessible for any business to do.
Yeah, and so I would love to go back, and if you can tell the story just for people who have maybe tuned in and just thought you were the host. That's all Andy did. He was just a full-time host of the show here. Tell us a little bit about your journey, building Incivia up. And I think that's where, as I know, you learned a lot of the need. The reason you're launching Breakthrough is because that whole strategic planning and collaboration, a tool, a platform for that doesn't seem to exist out there. And so that was kind of where this was born. But let's go back and tell the story of your.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about origin story, as we always, experience on the show. I was 22. I started the business right when I graduated college. And it's one of those things that I was lucky enough that my dad was an entrepreneur. And so I had been around someone that had started a business and been inspired by that, most of my life. And then, the other piece was that I really, outside of getting a marketing degree in college, spent a lot of time teaching myself to program and design through side work during college, just trying to, teach myself all these different technologies. And it was something that I was able to pick up. And so, when it came time that I graduated, I said, look, I have an opportunity that I've got these skills. I've been in this world of entrepreneurship for years in some way or another, just seeing it. And so now is the opportunity to start something. And I really wanted to take those skills that I had honed, and, take them to the world on my own. And so, I started the company, and it's been an amazing transition over the years, these 19 years. And the key is back to that strategy is, we've grown and scaled because of our focus on what makes us unique. Why do people want to do business with us? How do we compete against other people in the market? I have taken and spent a lot of time, really looking at that. And the reason is because we look at it for our clients as well. And when I started the business, it was a lot about the transactional nature of building websites and designing pieces and, executing marketing. But over the years, what we ended up finding is the real struggle that customers had was on the strategic side. You come in to build a website, but what the challenge was is they didn't really understand who their, best opportunities were as target audiences, or how they could articulate what made them unique in the marketplace. All of these different pieces were missing when we tried to execute. And so our firm really transitioned and evolved into a consultancy where it was much more about starting there with customers. How do you determine a go-to-market strategy to be extremely competitive in the marketplace? And then once you've done that and you have all of these pieces defined and you build a huge, smart foundation, now we can actually execute. And really break through our product is about taking that upfront process, which typically requires consultants and bring people in or going to 3-day planning sessions. And it really does simplify it down into a cloud-based platform that makes it step-by-step, helps you the whole way through, and then adds in, like I was talking about earlier, this whole other level of communication and collaboration with various stakeholders in the team.
Yeah, that's great. So I do have a couple of questions, some of the things you just touched on, but I would like to ask, when did you get the idea to build this as software? You've been, at this for a long time. You've been doing the consulting and strategic planning, and you have a very well, detailed plan and process for how you go through the steps of defining, everything from market positioning, brand, all of that. How did you come up with the idea to take what you do and turn it into this platform?
Well, the reality is, one of the things that I think as being an entrepreneur and a founder, I am constantly looking at, how do you do things differently or better? And that's not just for our own business, but for all the clients that we've worked with is, how do you take something that's being done X way now and look at doing it differently? And I've been passionate about software, my entire life and career. And I really enjoy it, back to the days where I taught myself to program, and so I always tend to look at things through the lens of how do you take something that isn't being done in a platform and hasn't been presented in a way that's, scalable, collaborative, all the things that software brings us. How do we take things and make sure that we put them in that mode? And so, transparently over the years, we have tried to build other products. We built a tool called PlanBold that was a marketing calendar system. We built Persona Bold, which focused on, just personas. And those had some levels of success. And really what ended up happening for me, I think, is this mixture of the pains that I had as a consultant of, how do I take these exercises and processes that create strategic planning and make them very simplified? The challenge of how do I communicate it? 10 years ago, we would design these huge, 3 by 5 foot posters that talked about all the strategic initiatives for the company. And we would put them on the walls and we would do all these other things. And then we had these tools that were a little more on the transactional side, marketing calendar, just persona documentation. And it was really trying to bring all these things together. And for me, getting a little bit over that hump of most people think of strategic consulting as something that they need, or strategy and planning as something that they need to bring somebody in to do. And I don't believe that. I think there's an opportunity to simplify it and scale it. And so it was really bringing all of those different pieces together of the pains and challenges we were facing ourselves and with clients, some of the tools that we had built previously, and then making this leap and saying, okay, something that requires a lot of thought and requires, typically people, there is a way to merge these things and create a platform using exercises, using different, methodologies to actually make it accessible and democratized for everybody.
What would you say were your big takeaways, things that you learned in the other products that you launched, like Plan Bold, Persona Bold, that helped influence kind of the way you decided to approach breakthrough?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. For me, I have come to the point where, we do look at competitive, in our own process. Let's just bring it out there, is that when we look at opportunities, we talk about what's the, market opportunity of how much opportunity there is, the demand, the competitiveness, all of these different factors. And for me, it was in these transactional tools, understanding and knowing that they're very crowded markets, that you can go in and there are a lot of tools out there to execute, to do things. The one thing that I think is missing in the marketplace, not only from a standpoint of a tool that can help people solve problems, but also missing from a standpoint of it's a common pain that is not easy to solve. And that is strategic thinking and strategic planning. It's something that every business struggles with. It's something that is not always easy to solve. And there are not a lot of tools out there that really try and solve that problem, because most of them are focused much more on that executional nature. And so, as we developed Plan Bold and Persona Bold, which were more execution tools, I think we saw that, there's great opportunity in that, but there's a lot of options for people out there to be able to do that. And what was missing was still that strategic piece, because you couldn't use our tools. You couldn't use Persona Bold and Plan Bold until you got the strategic piece done. And there was still a gap there for how do you do that in a way that's easier and scalable and simplified. So,
yeah, it's really interesting. For those that may not be familiar with, I think I'm breaking up here a little bit. Can you hear me? Okay. A few years back, Incivia published the white paper, The Vision Gap. And that's a topic that, we've talked about, in different shows and whatnot. For me, the way I see Breakthrough as a platform is something to help solve that challenge. So do you mind talking about the concept of the vision gap and what how you put that out to the world as far in that white paper?
Yeah, it's really a definition of what I've just talked about, is that, the vision gap is this idea that leaders and leadership teams are constantly focused on the vision and where the company's going. I know myself, I know my other friends that are entrepreneurs, they're thinking about it in the shower, they're driving their car, and they're thinking about growth or what's their strategy or how do we improve this. It's a constant thought process of how do I envision our future and how do we solve the challenges that we're facing. But the challenge is that you've got these audiences out there. You have your employees in the company. You have prospects that you want to reach and talk to. You have customers that you're working with. And the challenge is how do you not just define that vision, but really communicate it and articulate it to bridge that gap. And as an example, how is a strategic vision delivered to the employees on a team? Typically it's in a random conference room and someone happens to bring up a piece of information, a big company meeting where you've only got 30 minutes to talk, a poster that you throw on the wall. And the reality is that if you want to get your employees aligned, you want them all to be headed in the same direction at that point on the horizon. You want people to understand how customers think, all of these different pieces that are going to be successful. You have to bridge that gap between this visionary that's constantly thinking and has all sorts of nuance around their strategy and the employees who just get the McNuggets of strategy and are expected to still be aligned and efficient and driven towards the vision. And so that gap there is where the real challenge is. And I think that organizations fail because if you have a vision gap with employees, people aren't aligned. You don't have the right people on the bus. Different folks are working towards different goals and points in the horizon, which sometimes then creates conflict in the company because, as an example that I've seen in the past, your development team that's building a product and your sales team have completely different visions of what the company looks like in 3 years. And that is very difficult to become successful because you have a product team almost working against the sales team that never catch up. And the same gap exists with prospects and customers. With prospects, if you can't articulate why you're different and why people should do business with you and how you structure your offerings, there's a gap between that vision of how you see your business and how you see why it matters and prospects. And then same thing with customers along the lines of, customer experience, operations, all of these other pieces. And so the vision gap is really that idea is that a leadership team or visionary in a company, they have so much nuance and vision and all of these things that can make an organization so much more successful. But then there's this huge gap between that and the employees and prospects and customers really being evangelized into it to help the organization grow and scale. And breakthrough is really, like you said, a solution to bridging that vision gap. It is really a way to solve that challenge. And for me, if you can solve that challenge, I do think it is transformational across the organization, because then when you have those employees aligned, everybody understands the strategy, what makes us different. And I'm talking about everyone in the organization. Doesn't matter if it's the person that picks up the phones or leads your HR department. Everybody should be aligned and understand where the company is going. And then once they are aligned and they have that, definition and articulation, they can then transition that into marketing and sales, customer service, and all of these areas that then bring prospects and customers across that gap as well. And when we can do that and we can bring everybody together, that vision is really encompassing our employees, prospects, customers, stakeholders, that's when I think companies really start seeing success happen.
I'm curious to hear your take on culture, company culture, and how do you build a culture, by design. And I know that's an element of breakthrough, so I would love to hear more about how your experiences have led into how you've built that into the platform.
Yeah, I think culture is hard. I always say in interviews and other things that culture is one of those words, like, to me, quality, it has many different meanings to people. Quality may mean the craftsmanship or the look and feel or the experience that you get. And so when you use the word quality in marketing and other things, it can be ambiguous. Culture to me is the same thing. Is that for some people that means the time off or the things that are in the company. The other is the feel of the people around them. Culture can, for other people, be the vision and the aspiration for the future. And so for me, it's really about, there are key defined elements of culture that help you get a number of those things right. And if you can get them right, you get the right people on the bus. You do deliver that aspirational nature that excites people, and you do deliver the other pieces. And so for me, it's really core values, which I'll come back to because I think they're so important. Mission and vision. Vision is about what are you trying to accomplish in the future and where are you going? I really believe that it needs to be something accomplishable. And when you can accomplish it, then you create a new vision. Mission is, how do we deliver on that vision every day? What do we do? How do we act to deliver on that vision? Big, hairy, audacious goals. What are those goals that are aspirational, that get everybody excited, and other elements? But the key one is, for me, is core values. We talk about this a lot. And I think this is where companies struggle is, a lot of companies just want to create core values as a, surface level exercise, or something that is more for show than it is for really actionable use. Here at Incivia, and when I recommend it to clients, we use core values to evaluate potential employees and current employees to understand how do they fit the organization. And I'm such a huge believer that if you can get people on that really embody the core values of a company, that is one of the keys to getting everybody aligned, because you have the right people that think the right way, that are all driven towards the right things. And so if you get those core values wrong, or you're using them just as vanity values, you're not really creating that environment where you have the right people and you're getting everybody aligned. And that's one of the challenges that I've seen working with hundreds of these companies is we go back and we look at these key elements, the core values, vision and mission, and their vanity pieces. We put community service as one of our values, but not a single person in our organization has donated any of their time in the last year. That's a vanity core value. And so what you're saying to the world is, we want you to come work with us or work for us, and community service is important to you. But then when you get here, that's not really something we care about. We're here for other things. And so I think there's a process, and that's where I have developed exercises over the years to figure this out. There is a process to get to the core of what your values are as a company, and then define those extremely well, articulate them so people can really understand and embody them, and then obviously making sure that you use them every day throughout the organization. And so for me, culture is a huge piece, and until you get it right, you're going to struggle with a lot of those pains. Again, turnover, lack of alignment, folks that maybe aren't as excited to come into work as they should be. But then when we define those pieces, I think you can make that transformational shift to a much more aligned, excited, inspired, and driven culture.
Yeah, and I'll just elaborate on the fact that, as you know this, Andy, but those core values really resonated with me. And that's one of the reasons I made the decision, Incivia was the place that I wanted to be, is because they felt authentic and legitimate, and they matched my values. And I've experienced those type of places that have the vanity, mission statement or values. And, when I see that, it feels almost like someone who sets up a dating profile and puts a bunch of lies. And it's like, well, at some point they're going to meet you. And at some point they're going to see that that's not true. How do you get a good fit if people don't really know what your company is all about, what your aspirations are, so on and so forth? And I think it's fantastic that this tool, offers the ability for people to help define and then articulate a lot of those culture elements. So really cool stuff. And I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, and I think most people see that stuff as not extremely strategic, but I do. I see core values as not an exercise that you bring marketing folks in to do. It's an exercise that needs to be done on a strategic level of where do you want your company to go? What do you want it to look like? Who are the people that you want as part of the organization? What type of customers do you want to, attract? And so if you don't think of it strategically like that, again, core values, vision, mission, to me, those are the foundations. Everything else builds up and off of that. So when you don't get that right, you've got a shaky foundation. So I really think that companies that overlook it or think that it's just something for vanity are missing an opportunity to set a foundation for success.
I had an interview with a founder of an AI company yesterday for our Tech Founders Show, and a really fascinating conversation. And one of the things that he shared was he talked about in going to secure funding. He said, any company, any startup can put out an aspiration and put a theory of here's what we plan on doing. But ultimately, people are going to invest in the people behind that idea. And so your point on core values and all those things to attract the right fit for employees in that culture, that is basically foundational to having those right people, whether it's to secure the funding or take your company to where you need it to be. But I love that perspective you share on that, because it's a breath of fresh air. And I think it's important for business leaders to be looking at that piece of their business, like you said, from a strategic standpoint, if they truly want to make changes and get to where they want to grow to.
Just to add one other thing with culture, I'm a believer over the years of having a business for a long time that there really is right fit. There are folks that in other organizations struggle, and then they come to yours and they're all-stars, and vice versa, that you can have someone within your organization that you look at and you say, look, this is not working out for whatever reason. And you can come up with a bunch of different reasons that someone might not be a fit. But the reality is that they may go somewhere else and be an all-star. And I think that's where fit can really come in, and where core values and alignment and inspiration for the vision and the future, that when you have that right, one, you're making sure you get the right people on, but those right people are then inspired to really be their best. And I really think there's something to that people don't realize, is that you really have to get that cultural fit to have successful folks. And, someone that's not successful with your organization They may go somewhere else and be more inspired by their vision, might match more with the other employees because the core values are better set. And so why do you want to make the mistake of potentially bringing someone on that does not resonate, that isn't inspired, if you're just putting vanity stuff out there and really faking them out? The likelihood of you bringing on false start employees when you take that approach is much higher.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's fantastic. I would love to hear more about how Breakthrough supports the whole developing a unique brand, market position, target audiences, all that kind of stuff. Just a little bit of your approach that, it works its way through the platform.
Yeah, and I think these things, the reason that the platform was built the way it is because it's progressive and these things build upon each other. We just talked about culture and setting that, core foundation. Who are the people we want here? How are we inspiring them? What's our vision for the future? But then we build on that with our market positioning. And that's really about what makes us truly unique. How do we articulate the people, how we're unique and why they want to do business with us? Who are our best target audiences? Who are, what does it mean for those different people to resonate with some of these factors? Because the biggest challenge that I see in organizations, again, you go in and you ask them what makes them different or who they target. And when you ask who they target, it's pretty much everybody. And it's hard to do that because as an organization, the time and the resources to try and market or sell everyone is hard. It also dilutes your messaging so that when you're talking to marketing or sales folks and helping them be more effective in their jobs, they're sitting there and they're having to think about the pains, the challenges, the trends, the buying factors for all of these different audiences, and their message becomes diluted in marketing and sales. And so they're less effective. And then when it comes to articulating what makes you unique in the marketplace, companies have this sense that, they kind of really go towards the same thing that all their competitors have, quality, speed, customer service. And the reality is that if you walk into a prospect's office and tell them about your company and you say quality and customer service and security or whatever these different factors are, your next 5 competitors are saying probably the same thing. And so for me, it's really about this process and exercise of breaking that down. Again, moving away from the vanity idea of it, quality is vanity, customer service is vanity, to the strategic side of it. What is it about quality? We talked about hand craftsmanship. We can talk about quality has to do with the level of the people and the number of times that they come in and quality assure something, and now we're talking about something different. And that's a piece that we can turn into being really unique, is that the caliber of our quality assurance, and then backing that up with saying, we hire only certified people. We've developed a 3-step quality assurance process. And, we come in 3 months later and do a post evaluation. Now you're walking in the room and saying, we've got this high caliber quality assurance process to ensure that you've got the best. And then the rest of your 5 people are saying, we've got quality products. And so how you define what makes you unique and how you articulate it is a game changer. It's a game changer for marketing and sales. And so then when you combine narrowing down your target audience so that you can really focus on the best possible customers, and you can really narrow down their pains and needs and challenges. And then you can match that with true differentiators, things that really make you more unique than the competition, and you're able to articulate those better. Talk about effective marketing and sales. And so, again, building upon all of this, there are ways to strategically think about these things. When we talk about target audiences, we often measure what is the market opportunity for that audience. And so if you look at, you target manufacturing, retail, all of these other different groups, what's the market opportunity? What's their level of demand for your services? How hungry are they for it? How much competition and alternatives are out there to your services for that market? What's your level of experience? How long, how many customers? What's your level of specialization? How customized and unique are your offerings to that target market? And you can score those, and you can say, well, market opportunities 1 to 10, specialization 1 to 10, these different things. And you can then make the cream of the crop in target audiences rise to the top, so that you can find those 2 or 3 audiences that are going to be your absolute best opportunity for growth. And so that's where a platform like Breakthrough comes in, is that it helps you through this process of figuring that out. And so someone that's there and currently is sitting back and struggling because they're trying to talk to everybody and they're using vanity value propositions to define their differentiation, they can actually go in and use some methodologies to become more strategic about it, then get to the real heart of what is going to be valuable for their organization to grow, and then be able to communicate and collaborate with their team about that information, so that they're not just defining it, but they're evangelizing it in their marketing and sales folks that can then be significantly more effective.
That's great. I would love for you to share a little bit, talk about the approach as far as, we often ask founders, did they bootstrap? Did they raise funds? Well, I would love for you to share with everybody that's watching how you have taken on Breakthrough. And I think what's interesting about it is that it's not like there's been a lull in the Incivia business. We're growing fast, and we're all over the globe at this point. And you decided to throw the development and launch of Breakthrough in the mix. Explain a little bit about how you've done that and how you've used internal resources, because I think it's pretty interesting. And so far, I think things are feeling pretty good.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, we ask founders all the time about raising capital and bootstrapping, and we always hear their answers. So here's mine. I am a big fan of bootstrapping and then raising capital when you have traction. And there's a number of different reasons that I believe in that. But the biggest one is probably the fact that, from a valuation standpoint, that as an owner, you've got something that's got some value, and then you're not giving all that away too early. Momentum, when is the right time for capital to come? I think that market validation and some initial traction with revenue is the right time to look at funding. And so I am a fan of the idea of, you try as hard as you can to bootstrap and hold off on capital until it's, necessary to meet an end to grow. And so we have bootstrapped. And like you said, we've been very busy. But the other thing that I've learned over the years, not only from working with hundreds of software businesses and other businesses, but trying to create my own products, is it is hard to spin out a business from an existing one. And there's a lot of different reasons why. For our company, when we've tried to create products in the past, Someone is off working on the product, but then something comes up in the main business and it's held off for a month or two. And so you really can't get the traction. And when you're stopping and starting, the momentum never gets there that you really start getting over those humps. And so you hear a lot of times when you talk in entrepreneurial circles of companies trying to spin out businesses, that unless you're a much larger organization and you can dedicate resources, it is very hard to do it with your existing resources. And so we decided, based on the success of Insivia and the fact that, that business has grown and we had capital and resources and these other things, but also the strength of the concept. Our clients, we've now seen hundreds of people that are hungry for the need to define and articulate and communicate and collaborate around their strategic vision. We were able to validate the market through our own business by understanding that there is a real pain out there, and there is not a great solution that makes it easier and more scalable. And so those different factors came together that we decided to hire a dedicated development team in-house. We hired folks onto our team to come in and spend full time focused on this product. And that really has given us momentum like we've never had before in spinning out a product to really have something that is well built, based off of the market validation that we've gotten over the years to understand what is really needed by our target customers. And so, it was a great culmination that allowed us to dedicate the people and time to really build something that's truly fantastic and solves a real problem that many organizations need to be focusing on.
That's great. So where is the product at right now, if you want to share with everybody, because we're right in the middle of something as we're doing this show, which is pretty exciting. You want to share with, where we're at as far as users go?
Yeah, we just, we launched the beta a little bit ago and have been bringing on various users, really utilizing the product with our own customers, and now really truly launched out to the marketplace for folks to come on, sign up, get started on their own and utilize the platform. And we often ask about models. It's a freemium model, so it starts out that you can use the tool. We wanted to democratize this, give people the power to do something better and improve their organization, no cost. But then obviously that as you want to expand that with your team, and you're a growing organization that wants to bring more people in to help with strategic planning or more people in for collaboration and communication of your strategic plan, that then we've got packages that allow you to scale your organization with the product. And so we've got a, fantastic tool out there at breakthroughos.com. And it's something that people can get signed up today and start using. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit, but we've got also a fantastic roadmap for how this product that's currently out there in the market being used is going to continue to evolve and really, in my mind, I think game change the way strategic consulting and strategic planning is done all over the world.
You must have had a sneak peek into my notes, because that was my next question, was about roadmap. But before we go there,
I've watched the show before.
There you go. Question about, the whole idea of democratizing strategic planning. Any concern that you're building a product that actually could put your consultancy out of business?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the intention, and I think, the goal is that we do something right now that has limits on scale, limits because of cost, and all of these different things. And creating this product is the concept of how do we reduce those limits. And in creating this product, that we can do it at scale, that we can do it in a cost-effective manner, that we can help organizations really rethink their strategy, do it in a way that's extremely logical and built on smart methodologies, that helps them take it beyond the consulting and, again, collaborate and communicate around it. And really, not only should it replace what we're doing, but actually replace what we're doing, reach more people, but actually do it better in some ways, because we can bring the power of the web, of being able to bring people together, of presenting information in real time, of capturing data, of integrating other systems. And so we can do that with a topic that typically hasn't had that power: strategic planning. In strategic planning, it is usually pretty transactional and one-dimensional. Now that we're doing it as a software, we really have the capability of just blowing it out of the water in the way that we deliver it and the way we help customers do it and how they can integrate. And that's why I think it's such a big game changer, is that right now I think strategy is very two-dimensional, and we are really adding a whole third and fourth dimension to it, to make it more impactful for organizations.
Would you agree, Andy, that part of that adding dimension is that it connects the dots of these pieces? I think when people think about culture, it's kind of one thing. When they think about brand, that's very much, this thing that resides over here. And then there's marketing, and marketing brand might have some, play with one another, but you don't really think of that connected to culture. And I think when you go through the process, going through what Breakthrough allows you to do and see and have all of that stuff in one place, you start to understand how those things come together. Do you think that's part of what makes this that kind of, adds an additional dimension to the whole landscape?
Yeah, I think when I talk about, collaboration, part of that for me is breaking down silos. And I really think that that's part of what this platform is meant to do, is break that down, is that marketing is not just the ones focused on personas and target audiences. HR is not focused on core values, leadership on vision, customer service, all of these different pieces that end up being part of our strategy, that it's something accessible by anybody, but then that you can change the paradigm of how information is shared with people, that doesn't have to be purely by silos. And one of the key features of our platform is called boards. And what that is that we can take any information across the platform. So if you've got your core values, vision, mission, big, hairy, audacious goals, your target audiences, your value propositions, elevator pitch, logos, on down the line, all of this strategic information, you can create customized boards where the marketing team has a board that they can see the core values, the vision, the value propositions, and the personas, and then an onboarding board where you can have core values in these pieces, and you can create unlimited boards for different uses. And you're creating new groups that are flexible, that can bring anyone from any different part of the company in to collaborate and talk around that part of the strategic plan in their own area. But then it's still all centralized information. And so it's the same vision that's going out to all of these different groups, that they're all collaborating and discussing around, but it's in one place so that if it changes, everybody across the organization is informed. And so this whole concept that we built that is really one of these dimension changing things is this idea of defining and articulating and building your strategy that is a little bit separated from how you communicate and collaborate with it, so that you can do that in very flexible ways that are still connected, but then allow people to have these, really dynamic conversations around parts of the business. And so that dynamic that we've built into this makes the platform so much more powerful for organizations.
Yeah, definitely. So go ahead and why don't you share with us the plans? What is on that roadmap? I know there's a lot of exciting things. We had to get the beta out first. So what are the things that you have in mind?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. One, we do have a future of some AI that's coming in that, as you're putting in information, that it's prompting you to be bringing in more data and information, and it's prompting you along the way. But then as you're putting things in, that we've got, these really dynamic rule sets and evaluations based off of data that we have and third-party systems that will actually give you recommendations. So truly bringing some of that human element to the process through artificial intelligence. And that's actually combined with a coaching tool, is that we are bringing real humans in, not only to give more power to our customers and let them dial someone up to get some help, but then also train our AI to be smarter so that, again, we can more greatly democratize this process of strategic planning, which is the goal. And then we've got some other, outside of that, cool features that are going to make it more flexible, scalable, and collaborative, so that truly organizations can go in and create very strategic definitions of their vision and pieces of how they're going to grow their business. They can truly evolve those and articulate them, and then communicate and collaborate with people in really exciting ways to get everybody in the organization aligned, on the bus, driven towards the right place, and being as effective and efficient as possible. And so I really do think not only the tool we have now, but the roadmap that we have is just going to, not only democratize strategic planning, but really take what it is to a whole different level.
It's awesome. Super exciting. So I think we will wrap up with our typical last question of the show. And that is the question, if you can go back in time to the beginning, and I don't know if you want to say the beginning of, your initial.
I was going to say when I was 21.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm going to ask you for two then. So what, if you can go back to your 21-year-old self and give yourself a piece of advice over a cup of coffee, even though you don't drink coffee, there's that. And then also just the starting of breakthrough and the initial, decision to take this to market. What are the two pieces of advice you'd give your former self?
You'd think that I would have been more prepared for this question, given that I asked it to everybody, and had some profound statements ready to go. And that's really what it's about. It is, what have you learned along the way that you wish you knew a little bit earlier? I think for me, when I was really early on in the business, understanding people and connections better, at 21 when you're in college, at 22 when you're coming out of college, I think that is a concept that you really have to learn, is that, people drive the world. It's about your employees. It's about your customers. It's about, the people that are around you and understanding them and being able to adapt and communicate and all of these things that are just so important to every day. And for me, it wasn't just, I think, understanding people generally of like, how do you get the most out of your relationships? How do you leverage people like mentors? And how do you, all these different things that are so, emotional quotient as much as, more than intellectual quotient. Really knowing that up front and focusing a lot of time on growing my skills and knowledge and understanding around people and my connections with people. I wish that in my early days that I had more awareness of the importance of that and took the time to really think about it. Again, I think, everything comes down to that people and the interaction and the way you connect and the way that you work together. And if you can learn that earlier on, it gives you so much power. And it took me years to get there. And then as far as a breakthrough, we are in early stages, but I'll take it from a product perspective, just in general, is that, dedicating and focusing, there is something to really having a smart plan for what you're trying to accomplish, really understanding the pain, and then getting that validated in the market, but really dedicating the time and people to it so that it can be successful. You never want it to be that thing in the corner that you only play with every once in a while. It's never going to grow up and be, successful and responsible if you don't give it the love and care that it needs. And so, those would be two things that come to mind. After doing this 20 years, I probably have about 50 different learning lessons that I would have loved to learn a little bit earlier, but those are two that come to mind pretty quickly.
Those are great. And I'll say I believe this is our 30th show. Those are brand new. Those are not ones that have been shared before. So even though you haven't thought them through and didn't have them ready to go, those are good ones. So awesome. Well, tell everyone who's watching and listening where they can go once again to sign up, get a free account, try Breakthrough out, kick the tires, and let us know their thoughts.
Yeah, of course, we're on all the social channels, so you can find Breakthrough, try Breakthrough on Twitter and Instagram. We're on LinkedIn, so check us out there. 100%, always connect with me on LinkedIn, reach out. I love, to connect with folks. I just talked about people and connections. Again, the more folks that I can build as part of my network, the more I learn and the more I can impact other people. So please connect with me, and then go check out breakthroughos.com and sign up for the free trial. At the very least, you'll probably learn some things by seeing some of the methodologies and approaches and ideas, and have the ability to improve the organization at no cost. And then as it becomes something that's better for you, we hope that you become a customer, and we can help you scale in a way that you never thought possible before.
And Andy, your handle over at TikTok?
Camelot is a silly place is my handle over there. So
there you go. No. All right. Well, very cool. Appreciate the time here, and appreciate everyone tuning in to hear Andy's story, to learn about Breakthrough. We will be back next time with another brand new SaaS founder. So thank you guys for joining. And Andy, thanks for your time. Take care.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.